I'm Murph. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love that theme song. I want to thank the American Wake again for allowing me to use Hold On as the theme song for Murph's Storytime. In this edition of Storytime, we're going to be listening to The Lands. This is episode 10, which is part 3 of chapter 2, The Morning Report. Before we get started, let's recap some of the things that have happened so far in The Lands. Agent Clayton has informed Director Clayton that Princess Natalie gave him no information to why she was in Techland. She gave some lame excuse about leaving the town and going to Merchant Valley to discuss delivery times because Merchant Valley wants them to deliver at night and they don't think that's worth and blah, blah, blah. Agent Clayton didn't buy any of it. But he didn't have a whole lot of time because he needed to meet up with some of the members of the tribe. So he just kind of popped into Director Clayton's office to let him know that Princess Natalie is sticking to some lame story and that he's got some suspicions. And to quote Agent Clayton, he says that there is a fungus among us. Is there a spy in Techland? Did somebody help the professor escape? Agent Clayton's telling Director Clayton he better get all over that because the chairman would be none too happy if he didn't. In the Western Territories, Gonzo's gang is waiting for Big O to open the Orseshoe so they can get some breakfast. Big O just kind of went inside to get it ready after having a little discussion with Sheriff Bob. So in this episode, we're going to go back to the Western Territories. We heard previously about a man with an eye patch who was waiting for someone to cross in front of him, to pass by him. Someone in particular. But that someone, who we know is the professor, never showed up. So King Michael thought, hey, maybe the professor's hiding somewhere in the kingdom. So he called a search. And that search proved to be fruitless. They did not find the professor. So who was that man with one eye? And what's he doing now? Maybe we'll find out. And the young man is now nice and comfortable in a cute little bedroom that Queen Kwon is allowing him to rest in. Last we saw him, he heard an interesting noise. What was that noise? I don't know. Let's find out. So, before we go though, remember, stick around after the credits for my concluding remarks, and we'll talk a little bit about this episode and maybe give a little heads up into what you might be hearing in the rest of the episodes of this chapter. So, hey, a 1 and a 2, and away we go. Welcome to the Lands. Episode 10, Chapter 2, The Morning Report, Part 3. Our quote for this episode: "The spirit is a fleeting memory in the head of the simple-minded." Ram. The young man lay in the bed in the room that Queen Kwon had in the back of her massive store. His eyes were closed, but he could hear some voices on the other side of the door. He could barely make out what they were saying, but he could tell it was Captain Hobogon and Queen Kwon talking. "How long should we let him sleep?" Captain Hobogon asked Queen Kwon. "I would say as long as he needs to, you know what I mean?" Queen Kwon answered. This made the young man laugh. There was something about Queen Kwon always saying, "You know what I mean," that he found humorous. "Well, if that's the case, I suppose I'll make myself comfortable," Captain Hobogon said. "Oh, yes. Why don't you just do that?" The young man heard Queen Kwon start to say something, but then her voice became more difficult to hear. It became soft mumbles. The young man strained to listen, but her voice just faded away. The young man thought about getting up, but he was so comfortable. "Must be talking about something they don't want me to hear," the young man said to himself. As he got more comfortable, he thought he could hear a beeping sound somewhere in the distance. "I wonder what that is," he thought. As he focused on the sound, what started out like beeping now sounded like something different. It sounded like a squeak. The young man opened his eyes, and there was a mouse sitting on the desk across the room from him. He recognized that mouse. It was the one from his dream. "What the heck?" the young man said, sitting up in bed. As he did, a slight wind began to swirl around him. "Squeak," the mouse said. But in his head, the young man heard, "Trust the process." "Are you seriously talking to me?" "Squeak." "Yes," the mouse answered. "I can't believe this," the young man said, confused but not scared. "Squeak." The young man shook his head as the breeze around him became a little more intense. "What? I didn't understand you." "Squeak." "I don't understand. What is Credo?" "Squeak." In his head he heard, "Trust the process." "What does that mean?" The mouse smiled, which surprised the young man. "Squeak." "You'll find out." "Squeak, squeak." You have to go now. Where are you going?" The mouse stood up and ran to the edge of the desk. It looked intensely at the young man. "Squeak." "What is Credo? What do you mean?" Then the young man noticed that the mouse was disappearing in the breeze. As it did, it whispered, "Trust the process." As the wind began to swirl around the room, it started to get dark in the room. The young man could sense that his surroundings were beginning to change. He lay back down and closed his eyes and waited for the next surprise. Agent Clayton finally had reached the railroad tracks that ran through the meadow. His plan had been to follow the tracks all the way from Techland to the River of Wonder, but there had been too much activity in the kingdom and the town, so he was forced to ride all the way around the town, which put him a little behind schedule. He knew it really didn't matter if he were late to the meeting, since he was the important one, and Ram and his men would wait. But he had so much to do that he wanted to get back to Techland and get things moving. He rode his horse at a pretty good pace along the railroad tracks towards the hills just ahead of him. He was just outside the kingdom and about to enter the Thunder Mountain part of the Western Territories when he had a strange stirring inside of him. He knew exactly where he was, and although he didn't have much time, he veered away off the tracks and over some grassy knolls. He picked up the pace a bit, one because of the time factor, and two because he was eager to see what was just over the hills. As he reached the top of the hill, he stopped. Although his gut told him there was something up, he was happy to see the old dead tree sitting in a large ring of dirt and dead grass. It was as he expected, but he felt something in the air. He wanted to ride down to it, but time was limited, and he had to get things done and return to Techland. He made one last look around the surrounding area. "The old tree still looks dead, eh, Jules?" The horse didn't react. "I'm just saying," he said as he pulled on Jules' reins and turned her around. He spurred her to pick up the pace as they returned to the railroad tracks. As they approached the entrance to the Thunder Mountain Range, Agent Clayton stopped Jules again. He forced himself to look up at the rock formation just to his right. The formation made a natural ledge that protruded out from the range and over the railroad tracks. "Oh, Clayton," a sweet young voice said, "you are the most charming guy in all the lands." Agent Clayton shook his head and looked away from the ledge. He buried the memory deep down. Jules gave out a little whinny. "Yes, Jules, let's keep moving." She whinnied again. "I know. I have to quit stopping here." Jules started to move along the tracks. Clayton gave the ledge one more quick glance. If he could have seen what was on the ledge, he would have seen the remnants of hundreds of flower bouquets that had been left there. They entered into the Thunder Mountain Range and continued to follow the tracks. Jules knew the way, so he didn't have to pay much attention to where he was going. He needed to take his mind off the ledge. He looked down at the tracks below him and realized a small part of him missed the fact that the train no longer ran along the tracks. "There's a part of me, Jules, that kind of misses the old train," he said sadly. "But I understand why it was necessary to put a stop to it, even if it did destroy DW. Not much use for an engineer when there's no train. I get why we had to stop it. You know, the chairman was right. The train unified the lands, and that was not what he wanted. So the train no longer runs." The Chairman always gets what he wants. It's our job to make sure that happens, right, Jules?" He patted her on her neck. Off to the right, there was a dirt path that Jules veered onto. It led into a wooded area just outside the River of Wonder. A little bit down the path and they would be on the outskirts of the tribe. Agent Clayton knew he was very close to his meeting place, so it was time to take some precautions. He reached into a satchel he wore on his hip and pulled out the breakers. He threw them in the air where they floated. "Observe," he said to them, and they flew off in different directions. He continued a little further down the path, feeling pretty secure knowing the breakers were out and about, protecting him. He came around a bend and was not surprised to see a tribesman sitting on a rock reading a book. In fact, he expected it. He knew exactly who it was. He rode right up to him and stopped. The tribesman never stopped reading his book. He didn't even acknowledge Agent Clayton was there. Agent Clayton stared down at him, waiting for the tribesman to look up at him, or at least acknowledge that he knew Agent Clayton was there. The tribesman did nothing. This annoyed Agent Clayton. "I determine your conduct designed as uncouth," Agent Clayton said to the tribesman. "My concern of your mindset is minimal," the tribesman said in return. Agent Clayton smiled. He lifted his finger and a smaller breaker flew down and hit the tribesman in the head. This caused him to close his book and look up at Agent Clayton. "I determine your procedures to be unsatisfactory by my account," the tribesman said, "and I do not extol your modus operandi." As he said this, 4 more tribesmen came out from the brush. They looked as though they were going to attack him, but Agent Clayton wasn't frightened. They worked for him. This little show they were putting on, that they were tough and mean and could kill him if they wanted to, wasn't going to work. Agent Clayton knew he could kill each one of them if he really wanted to. But he didn't want to, because he wanted to use them instead. "Your promptness is defective," Agent Clayton said to them. They stopped, not sure what he was saying. What?" asked one of the men, looking to the others for assistance and understanding what Agent Clayton said. "You're late. That's what he said," replied the tribesman with the book as he stood up and placed the book on the rock. "I don't abide benevolently to the cloud on my cranium," the tribesman said to Agent Clayton. "You deserved it, Ram," Agent Clayton said shortly to him. "I deserve respect." Ram stared up at Agent Clayton with disgust. Actually, Ram always had a look of disgust on his face. He always looked as though he smelt something bad, or that he thought he was just the most intelligent person in all the lands, and everyone else was a complete idiot. He never smiled, always looked intense. Part of that was because of a scar that ran from his cheek to his ear, and that his eyebrows were always in a frown position. His front teeth stuck out a little from his mouth, kind of like a rabbit, but not so pronounced. Right now, he was upset that Agent Clayton hit him on the head with a breaker. "I think I deserve a little more respect than that from you," Ram answered, approaching Agent Clayton's horse like he was going to attack him. Agent Clayton dismounted his horse and walked over to Ram. "We have Princess Natalie," he said to the tribesmen, completely ignoring Ram. They all reacted, except Ram. He just stared at Agent Clayton. "What will become of her has not been decided as of yet, but this news will definitely cripple your chief." "How could you possibly have Princess Natalie?" Ram asked, completely sure he had caught Agent Clayton in a lie. "A great miscalculation, that's how," Clayton answered. "It would be unwise of you to harm her in any way," one of the tribesmen said. Ram shot a look over at him that caused him to take a step back. Agent Clayton watched this and produced an awkward grin. "Whether we injure her is neither here nor there. What is important is that the one who is able to negotiate her return could be seen as a great leader. Now is the unspoiled point to discharge duty. Wouldn't you acquiesce?" The tribesmen all looked at each other, unsure of what Agent Clayton had just said. They all nodded slowly, thinking that was the right thing to do. Agent Clayton laughed, knowing they had no idea what he had said. He turned to Ram. He knew Ram understood him. "What exactly are you talking about, Agent Clayton?" Ram said. "If we are to act, what is it that you want us to do?" "You must challenge Chief Isaacs. Show he is weak in front of all of the tribe. If you can do this successfully, you will be rewarded. Are you all full with this?" Once again they looked at each other, then slowly nodded in agreement. Ram rolled his eyes at his counterpoints. Yes, Agent Clayton, we are up to it. I concur that this is the occasion to defy the sovereignty of Chief Isaacs. However, how do you arrange to remunerate our charge? The four other tribesmen nodded, then slowly backed away, realizing they were not going to understand anything that Agent Clayton and Ram said to each other. They trusted that their boss knew what he was doing, and they would just follow his orders. Agent Clayton let out a laugh. Your reward, Raminghorn, is control. You will have control of the tribe, and you will lead it out of its primitive ways and into the light, under, of course, the guidance of the corporation. I want your job with the chairman, Ram quickly said. Go away, little man, Agent Clayton responded just as quick. I should have had your job, Clayton. How the chairman ever chose you over me, I will never know, Ram said, getting very close to Agent Clayton. Agent Clayton smiled. He drew in a deep breath through his nose and held it a moment. He looked up at the rustling trees and released it. He nodded as he analyzed something in his head. I sense that the spirit is stirring today. It seems to be alive here in the tribe. Ram shook his head in disbelief. The spirit? Come on, Clayton. The spirit, really? You cannot still believe in that. Ram got right in Agent Clayton's face, his face looking even more disgusted. A smart guy like you still believing in the existence of a hocus-pocus, imaginary bunch of baloney that does nothing for anyone but make them look stupid. He shook his head again. The spirit. The spirit is a fleeting memory in the head of the simple-minded. And even if such frivolity did exist, it has to be dead. Logic and intelligence will tell you that such a thing was created to control the masses and to promote those with the ability to hoodwink everyone else. The fact that you still believe in it, Agent Clayton, after everything you've been through, well, that tells me that the chairman must not be as wise as I once thought him to be. The two men looked at each other, Ram with his usual disgusted look and Agent Clayton with his stupid grin. Agent Clayton turned and mounted his horse and gave out a laugh. That is why he chose me over you, Ram. The chairman knows the spirit is real, as do I. And you, my friend, are an idiot. Ram approached Agent Clayton. I will challenge your intelligence any time, Clayton. I am, by far, a smarter person than you, and I can prove it. Nah, Ram, you're nothing but a 2-bit player in a 3-bit league. I'm just saying. With that, he turned Jules around. But, who knows? Succeed in overthrowing Chief Isaacs, and maybe the chairman will bring you up to the big leagues. As he rode away, he threw his hand up in the air. 4 of the 5 breakers flew down into his hand. As Ram stood and watched Agent Clayton ride away, the 5th breaker came up behind him and hit him in the back, then flew into Agent Clayton's hand. You call yourself intelligent, Agent Clayton yelled as he rode away. I'm just saying. Meanwhile, back in the town of the Western Territories, Gonzo's gang sat outside the Horseshoe, watching as the people from the tribe slowly moved down the river towards their spot on the shores where they would set up shop. When suddenly they heard the sound that they had been waiting for. The doors to the Horseshoe were being unlocked. The doors flew open, and standing there, arms wide open, was Big O. Gentlemen, we're all ready for you, Big O said as he motioned for them to come inside and go towards the bar. As Gonzo's gang, which consisted of Todd, Roy, and Gene, moved inside, Big O locked the doors behind them and moved to his place behind the bar. The usual, boys? Big O asked. Yes, sir, Gonzo's gang responded. Without even waiting for an answer, Big O slammed 2 glasses of milk on the bar. He produced a can of chocolate and a spoon for Roy, and a donut for Gene. He took a bottle of ale, popped the top off it, and slid it down the bar just as Todd sat down. He grabbed it before it could slide off the bar. Thank you, Big O, Todd said, just as he did every morning. Anything else? Big O said as he grabbed a glass and started pouring orange juice in it. Then he grabbed a large cup and poured coffee into it. The boss would like some coffee, Grimmer said as he descended the stairs that led to the 2nd floor of the Horseshoe. and I would like some OJ. Big O stood behind the bar, smile from ear to ear, as right in front of him was a glass of OJ and a cup of coffee. He had them sitting on a tray, ready for Grimmer to take upstairs. As Grimmer approached the bar, Big O reached under the bar very dramatically and brought up a box of donuts. The box was open so he could show the contents to Grimmer. Very nice, Grimmer replied. Only the best for our boss, right? Grimmer's smirk got bigger. Only the best, Grimmer said as Big O placed a box of donuts on the tray. Grimmer picked up the glass of OJ. Cheers, gentlemen, he said to Big O, Todd, Gene, and Roy. They all picked up their drinks, raised them in the air, and took a drink. Here's to another day, Grimmer said as he finished his OJ. He adjusted his holster, then picked up the tray that had the cup of coffee and the box of donuts on it. Time to see the boss. Grimmer chuckled as he went up the stairs at the fact that every morning they did the exact same thing, and every morning he chuckled at it. Then he wondered what new and exciting things were in store for him today. What he didn't realize was today was going to be the last time they were going to do their little morning routine. Rosie was standing by the table in the far corner of her tavern. She was searching her memory, and as hard as she tried, she could not remember seeing the occupants of that table leave. "How'd you all leave without me seeing you?" she mumbled to herself. She was usually very aware of what was happening in her tavern, who was arriving and who was departing, and to miss 4 guys leaving, well, that would be very unusual. Sure, they left money on the table, but the fact that she didn't see them leave, like they just disappeared, that really annoyed her. She took the money and shoved it in her pocket, then picked up the empty coffee cups and headed towards the main bar. She put the cups in the sink. She stared out as she thought about the night's events. It was quiet now, and she was waiting for her morning crew to come in and take over. Then she heard a noise that only her trained ear would pick up as something important. Most people would just consider it background noise if they heard it at all. But Rosie knew it. It was the sound of the secret door opening. The door was hidden down a hallway that led to the kitchen, and the entrance to that hallway was blocked by a red curtain. The secret door led into the castle and was used only by a select few. At this time in the morning, only one person came through the secret door. Rosie reached for a coffee mug with an eye patch on it and poured coffee into it just as General Nels walked through the royal red curtain. General Nels was a guy in his 30s with short, spiky blonde hair. He was pretty muscular and wore a black eye patch over his left eye. His expression told Rosie how he was feeling. "Good morning, General Nels," Rosie said, genuinely happy to see him. "Rough night?" "Long night, Rosie," he responded as he approached her. "Long night. How was yours?" Rosie thought a moment. "I would have to say it was an interesting night," she answered. "And what made it so interesting?" General Nels asked. "Well, pull up a chair, sweetheart, and I'll tell you all about it." General Nels smiled as he sat down on a bar stool and Rosie presented him his cup of coffee. "Actually, it was kind of a weird night. People from the town were in here. Are those people ever happy about anything?" General Nels let out a laugh. "I mean, I'm serious. They complain about everything. King Michael did this. King Michael said that. What a bunch of whiners." General Nels laughed and shook his head. "No comment," he said. "But that couldn't have been what made tonight an interesting night, because that's them every day." "No, but they were a part of it. Sheriff Bob was here with some of your guys and guys from the NLA, and there were some bald guys here with this creepy old man sitting in the shadow booth in the corner." That got General Nels' attention. "Bald guys?" "Yep, dressed like cowboys, but Sheriff Bob didn't recognize them." You said they were with an old guy? Did you get a good look at him?" No, I didn't," Rosie said, getting all excited. He had a hood over his head and never looked at me or spoke to me or anything. How can anyone ignore me? Someone who's got something to hide. Do you know who he is, General Nels? Not sure, but it does sound odd. They've been coming in the last few nights. Are they up to no good? Don't know. And you probably wouldn't tell me if they were, would you? Probably not, General Nels said with a smile. I guess that could make for an interesting night. Well, that's not all, Rosie said hesitantly. Something weird happened. Something I really can't explain. General Nels took a sip of his coffee, his one eye staring at Rosie over the rim of his coffee mug. He waited for her to continue. I don't know, Nels. It was so strange. I was here at the bar. Then I thought I heard a fight breaking out or something. I spun around to see what it was, and there was no fight. What was it? General Nels asked, very curious about what she might say. It was nothing. No one was doing nothing. But I'll tell you, Nels, the place was shaking. And I swear to the spirit that I heard people screaming and moaning. But no one was doing nothing. I was the only one who heard or saw anything. General Nels just sat, nodding his head. I ain't going crazy if that's what you're thinking. And it only lasted a few seconds. It was over as quick as it started. After a few moments, I just played it off. But it did kind of scare the bejesus out of me. No one else reacted? General Nels asked. Nope. How could that be? Now, the creepy old man in the corner may have, because I saw a little commotion back there, and I was going to go there to see what happened, but one of the bald guys waved me off. He mouthed with his cute little lips that everything was fine. So I let it be. I guess that would make for an interesting night. Well, there was a couple more things. Guys from the world came in and started a little smack talking to Sheriff Bob and the guys in the booth. General Nels shook his head. Those guys and their attitude, he said. I can't have them causing trouble, Nels. Your king wants to shut me down as it is. Trouble can't keep knocking here, or he's going to shut me down. He's not going to shut you down, Rosie. He probably will just arrest you, General Nels said matter-of-fact-like. Now, don't you go saying that, Nels. I'm all up in arms about how he feels about me. Rosie, you're okay. Trust me, he doesn't dislike you. He knows that if you weren't open, all those troublemakers would be out in the kingdom doing who knows what. This place is like the village home. People feel comfortable here. You're like everyone's great-great-grandmother. Child, don't just say such a thing. I know your parents, and I know they would not blink an eye if I gave you a whopping for saying such a thing. General Nels let out a big laugh. Remember, young man, Rosie continued, I used to change your diapers. You're just proving my point, Rosie. Well, my point is, I don't care what your title is. I'm not afraid to remind you about a little thing called respect. I'm sorry, Rosie. It was meant as a compliment. I'll be sure to let my mother know that you think I'm old enough to be a great-great-grandmother. Oh, they both laughed. No disrespect meant towards her either, Rosie. Being a great-great-grandmother is a compliment. Everyone sees you as that person you can turn to and rely on. Someone who will be there for you. That's what I meant. My point is, King Michael knows the importance of you and your tavern. Well, thank you, General Nels. I hope you're right. Trust me, Rosie. The lands need more places like Rosie's Tavern. I know. You know I just worry, Rosie said. General Nels took a big sip of his coffee. So, what did you do to get the guys from the world under control? He asked. Nothing. I was going to break it up, but I didn't have to because that gorgeous hunk of a man, Grimmer, came through the door. Grimmer? Yep, he just walked through my doors. Rosie closed her eyes and sighed. It was like she drifted off into a daydream. Rosie, General Nels said, causing Rosie to open her eyes. Where was I? I think you and the Grim Reaper were off on your honeymoon, General Nels answered with a big smile. And you felt you had to disturb me. They both laughed. So, Why did Grimmer come to town? He was on a mission from Gonzo, of course. He came to get Sheriff Bob. And it couldn't wait until this morning? I guess not. You know how Gonzo is. All too well, General Nels answered while taking another sip of his coffee. I take it the guys from the world didn't harass Grimmer. Oh, heck no. They cowered away like the little boys they are. This made General Nels laugh even more. Rosie, I should hire you to work in the King's regiment. You would be great. Would I get a badge and a horse? Rosie asked, getting all excited. And a sword, General Nels exclaimed. Could I have the rank of Admiral? Oh, no. I was going to make you the cook. Rosie smacked General Nels in the right shoulder. I'll cook you up. They both laughed. General Nels took another sip of coffee. He looked around the tavern as Rosie poured a little more coffee into his cup. Well, how's old Jep doing? Oh, he's doing just fine. Still wood carving? Trying. His old fingers don't work like they used to. I miss the old wood carver. I remember back in the day when he was set up in the back corner and you could give him an order in the morning and he'd have it all carved up by the end of the day. Well, you can thank your king for him being gone. He said the wood carver was unhealthy in this establishment. I guess he thought the wood chips could magically fly into the kitchen and get in the food. I guess he didn't realize that would make the food better, General Nels said with a laugh. Don't you be dissing my food now. Besides, you know it had nothing to do with the food. This was all about getting rid of the wood carver, which everyone loved. Your king just wanted him to open his own establishment so your king could get more taxes from him. Come on, Rosie. Not cheap to run a kingdom. Try running a business. Rosie motioned around the empty tavern. They both had a good laugh. Then General Nels got quiet. He stared straight ahead and cocked his head to the left, like he was following something with his good eye. What's up, Nels? General Nels took a last gulp of his coffee. It's nothing, Rosie. Don't you be saying it's nothing when I know it's something. General Nels smiled at her. I tell you, then I'd have to kill you. You just try it, sweetie. They smiled at each other, then General Nels stood up. You did have quite the night, Rosie, General Nels said. Next time those cowboys with the old man show up, come get me. I'd like to meet them. Sure thing, General. I feel the need to go and do some patrolling right now. Thanks for the coffee and the talk, Rosie. And just so you know, you may not have been the only one who felt shaking and heard screaming. With that, he turned and walked towards the curtain. Don't you turn and leave. What does that mean? Rosie tried to get around her bar to chase General Nels, but he was gone. You can't just say that and leave. Don't you tease me like that. I'll find out what you're talking about one way or another. Rosie shook her fist in the air. I know where you live. See you tomorrow, young man. Rosie smiled and returned to her bar. Grimmer chuckled as he went up the stairs at the fact that every morning they did the exact same thing, and every morning he chuckled at it. Then he wondered what new and exciting things were in store for him today. What he didn't realize was today was going to be the last time they were going to do their little morning routine. As he reached the door to Gonzo's office, stopped outside it, and listened. He always wanted to make sure he wasn't about to enter a dangerous situation. After a quick check, he knocked on the door. Who is it? Came a growl from inside. It's me, Gonzo, Grimmer answered. Well, come in then, Gonzo barked. Grimmer walked in, and there was Gonzo sitting at his desk, studying a ledger. He looked up at Grimmer, clearly upset with what he was seeing. Do you realize how much Mad Dog took from me? He growled, slamming the book. I still can't believe he did that. Just wait till I get my hands on him. Grimmer placed the tray with a cup of coffee and box of donuts on Gonzo's desk. Gonzo immediately went for a donut and took a big bite out of it. I don't understand why he hasn't been caught yet with the amount of money you put on his head, Grimmer said. That means nothing. Gonzo answered, waving his arms. He's got friends everywhere who will hide him. He took another big bite of the donut. Especially with how much of my gold he has. And everyone can be bought. He'll probably never be seen again. He took a drink of coffee, put the remaining bits of the donut in his mouth, and stood up, grabbing his cane and swinging it around like a madman. But if I ever see him again, I'm going to chop him up and make him pig feed. He gulped down the last bit of donut. Chale, they probably wouldn't even eat him. Why don't you just let me go after him? Grimmer asked, knowing already what the answer would be. No. I can't afford to let you go, especially right now. That got Grimmer's attention. Gonzo gave him that look he has whenever he's up to something. Trouble may come knocking, Gonzo said with a little laugh, and sat back down at his desk. New ordinance? Grimmer said, making his way over to his customary spot in the corner of the room, by the window and behind Gonzo. From there, he could see anyone who entered the Horseshoe and could keep an eye on outside. Let's just say we're going to have some mighty angry tribes people pretty soon. Bob, that poor excuse for a sheriff, should be informing our tribe friends this morning about the new law. They no longer will be able to sell their goods directly to the people. They now have to do it through my shops, at a fee, of course. He laughed heartily at his little scheme. Right away, the Grim Reaper began plotting how he would defend his boss from possible attacks from the tribe. His boss was hated by a lot of people, and this was one reason why. He cared for nobody but himself, and every time he did something like this, Grimmer's job got more difficult. Furthermore, Gonzo continued, that no-good bum Sam Larkin is about to default on his loan. I've given him about 3 months and still no money. If he doesn't pay up by today, then tomorrow you'll have to claim his property for me. I get you, Grimmer said. Then it might be time for you to hunt down Mad Dog. Grimmer did what he could do to contain the smile. He had wanted to hear those words for a long time. Sure thing, boss, he said. Gonzo picked up the red ruby that was sitting on his desk. He rubbed it, almost like he was doing it for good luck, but it wasn't. It reminded him of Mad Dog, and it pissed him off. He placed it back on the desk and picked up another donut. Agent Clayton emerged from the Thunder Mountain Range, still following the railroad tracks, and rode past the ledge without looking at it. A little breeze stirred, and a couple of flower petals rained down upon him. He swatted them away, not thinking much about them. His concern was over the grassy hills to his right. They proceeded down the tracks through the meadow. Should we continue down the track, Jules? See if the kingdom is clear? Or should we go around the town again? As he said this, however, he looked in the direction of the old dead tree. Something made him want to go over to it again. Jules stopped, sensing his dilemma. Agent Clayton drew in a deep breath, held it, then let it go. Just an old dead tree, right, Jules? They stood there a moment. There was no silly grin on his face, no aura of invincibility or sense of superiority. It was just him and his horse. And Agent Clayton felt something was happening. He couldn't quite grasp what it was, which was a failure on his part and made him a little angry. He could never show any weakness. Right now, it was just him and Jules, and he wanted to spend a moment taking it all in. My sense is, Jules, that something is happening. He looked back in the direction of the old dead tree. The old dead tree is still dead, and that's a good thing. He was about to move on when he sensed someone approaching. A man riding a horse was not that far in front of him, hidden by the bend, and was riding along the tracks towards him. He closed his eyes, took in a deep breath, and smiled. He knew exactly who it was. Although he was a threat, Agent Clayton didn't feel the need to react. He was just going to let it play out. Slowly, from around the bend and out from behind the grassy knoll, General Nels approached Agent Clayton. General Nels was the commander of the King's regiment and master of the guards. Although a young man in his early 30s, which made him almost 30 years younger than Agent Clayton, he could be a little intimidating. He wasn't large, but he was muscular. His blonde hair was short and spiky. What made him most intimidating was his piercing blue right eye. His other eye had a black patch on it, lost long ago. The two men knew each other well. "Agent Clayton," General Nels said as he slowly approached him. "General Nels," Agent Clayton responded. "What brings the agent of the chairman out this way?" the general asked. "What brings the commander of the King's regiment and master of the guard out this way?" Agent Clayton responded back. "I patrol this area. What about you?" "You patrol this area?" Agent Clayton said mockingly. "General Nels, since when does the commander of the King's regiment and master of the guard come out this way for patrol? Unless, of course, something is happening." Agent Clayton moved forward so they were face to face. "Is something happening, General Nels?" "Agent Clayton, I'm sure you could answer that better than I. But I must admit, I'm a bit surprised to see you out this way. So, maybe something is happening." "Is there a law saying I can't be here? Maybe I'm here to visit my parents," Agent Clayton responded. "No law, but certainly not ordinary. And I'm pretty sure you are not here to visit your parents. In fact, when was the last time you did that?" The two men stared at each other. Agent Clayton produced a silly grin. "I still appreciate the lands, General Nels. There are times when I like to get out and admire it." "So you can report back to your chairman what more there is for you to steal?" Agent Clayton's smile got bigger. "The chairman would love to have someone like you working for him, General. When you are done playing around with your boring king and ready to do something real with your life, you let me know." Agent Clayton lost his grin and got serious. "The time is coming, Nels. You may not have an option anymore. You're either going to be with us or against us." General Nels stared at Agent Clayton with his piercing blue eye. "Agent Clayton, there was a time I would have followed you into battle any day of the week. But now I can say without a doubt, if the time comes when I'm either with or against you, I will definitely be against." He moved in close to Agent Clayton. "No doubt in my mind, I will be against you. I just hope that day never happens." Agent Clayton smiled again, but this time it was a sincere smile, not his typical goofy grin. "I wouldn't expect anything else from you, Nels. I wish you would consider joining us in the corporation. You would be a major asset. In the meantime, General, do I have permission to proceed down the tracks to Techland?" General Nels turned around and the two proceeded down the tracks together. "You know what's funny, Agent Clayton?" "A good joke." General Nels ignored Agent Clayton's answer, which was an homage to days long gone. "What's funny, Agent Clayton, is that Techland won't allow anyone on their side of the tracks, block them off completely. You guys even stopped DW from running the train. Yet, you feel you are free to go wherever you want." Agent Clayton grinned his stupid grin, but didn't say a thing. General Nels just shook his head. "You can proceed on your own. I have things to do. If you do happen to stop by and visit your parents, tell them I say hello." "You seem to be fascinated with my parents, General Nels. Maybe you should visit them." "Oh, I do visit them, Clayton, quite often. That's how I know you never visit them. So don't try to fool me by saying otherwise. And Agent Clayton, I'm giving you this warning. I don't want to see you riding on our tracks. There's no law against it, but I just don't want you doing it." "The lands are free, General Nels." Yes, they are, and I'm trying to keep them that way. Unfortunately, I don't trust you. Consider yourself warned. I'm alerting my men to this new rule. You are not allowed to ride the tracks in the kingdom. Understand, Agent Clayton?" "Understood, General," Agent Clayton said, mockingly saluting him. "You're a bully. You'll get yours." "I'm just saying," General Nels responded, mocking Agent Clayton in his own words. "No, I'm just saying you're a bully." The two men smiled at each other. "Stay out of trouble, Agent Clayton." It's been good talking with you, Nels. If perchance you do see my parents, just tell them that, don't tell them anything. They're not important. What is important is the offer. Anytime you want a change of scenery, to be on the winning team, you just let me know." Never gonna happen, Agent Clayton. Shouldn't speak in absolutes, General. And just so you know, I will do whatever I want, whenever I want. I'm just saying. Agent Clayton rode off. General Nels watched him go. Part of him wanted to challenge Agent Clayton. Arrest him, fight him, something. He hated that he just let him go. But he knew that there could also be dire consequences if he did. He was doing the right thing, as much as it pained him. He turned his horse and rode up and down the grassy hills until he got to the spot where Agent Clayton had been not that long ago. He looked down at the old dead tree. He shook his head in sadness. If I didn't know any better, I would think Agent Clayton killed you. But we both know who did. He gave a big sigh, turned around, and headed back to the railroad tracks. I better make sure Agent Clayton stays on those tracks all the way back to Techland. Captain Hobogon sat in a chair across from the door to the room where the unknown young man was currently resting. On the table next to him were empty wrappers of candy bars and empty bags of chips. Captain Hobogon turned one of the bags of chips upside down to make sure it was empty. Kwon was on the other side of the messy storeroom organizing some boxes. "Do you have any real food, Kwon?" Captain Hobogon asked. "I own merchandise locations, not restaurants. They are two totally different departments," she responded as she continued to move boxes around. "But don't you sell hot dogs or pretzels?" he asked. "That's food. They are sold in restaurants. I only sell merchandise." "But you sell chips and candy." "That's because they are snacks. That's different," she answered, beginning to get a little annoyed by the conversation. "Well, I would consider pretzels a snack and not real food." "Well, take it up with the mayor. You know what I mean?" Kwon snapped. "I would sell everything they would let me." Kwon took a deep breath, feeling bad that she snapped at Captain Hobogon. "Do you want me to see if I have anything of more sustenance somewhere in the store?" Kwon asked. No, it's fine. I guess I'm just eating as a way of dealing with everything that's going on." Captain Hobogon thought for a moment. "Kwon, didn't you find it interesting what he said when he woke up?" Kwon thought a moment and tried to recall it. "I don't remember him saying anything. I know he didn't wake up laughing, that's for sure," she said with a laugh. Captain Hobogon laughed with her, then got serious again. "He said something about trusting the process." "Well, that is interesting." "Then he said something like, 'stupid little mouse.'" "Well, whatever could that mean?" "I don't know. I just find it odd. He has no idea who he is or where he's from, but he quotes one of our most famous lines and mentions mouse." Kwon turned and looked at the captain. She could tell he was very concerned about what was happening. "He may not have been talking about the mouse. Maybe he just dreamt about a mouse." She could tell her words were not reassuring. "I'm sure it's nothing, Captain. Everything will be okay. You know what I mean? But I understand that it's probably more difficult for you as captain than it is for me, especially with all that's happening in the lands." "Techland is not making my life any easier, that's for sure," Captain Hobogon remarked. Kwon flashed him a reassuring smile. "Everything will be okay, Captain. Credo." "I do believe," Captain Hobogon said, not sounding very convincing. "I just wish things were the way they used to be." "Are you saying you need to trust the process?" she said with a smile. Captain Hobogon smiled back, but the smile quickly faded. Kwon continued. "I'm sure they will. You know what I mean? But in the meantime, let me see if I can find us some real food." The two friends smiled at each other. "Thanks, Kwon," Captain Hobogon said, returning her smile. Kwon left the storeroom, and as she did, the smile left Captain Hobogon's face. He looked at the door. Something just wasn't sitting right. Never in all my years. Thank you for visiting the land. We hope you come visit us again soon. Well, it looks like the wait continues. At least now the young man has a cute little comfortable bed to lay in and dream about a talking mouse. What's all this stuff about trust the process and Credo? I mean, even Queen Kwon and Captain Hobogon have a discussion about it, so it must be important, must mean something. Are we ever going to find out? But more importantly, is Queen Kwon going to find something for Captain Hobogon to eat? Because he seems like a pretty hungry man. Gonzo seems to have a few kegs of trouble brewing, huh? Of course, there's the fact that Mad Dog is still missing, but now he wants the tribe to be selling their goods only inside his stores. So that can't make the tribe happy. Sure the tribe's getting a little angry about stuff, but Gonzo's not going to let them sell their stuff outside of his stores anymore. Merchant Valley, says, hey, you got to deliver your goods only at night. And Techline has Princess Natalie. I got to think, how much more are they going to be able to take there, But as for Gonzo, now he's talking about this Sam Larkin guy. What's up with that? He's not paying his debts. Could that be a problem? I don't know. Maybe, quite possibly. And who knows what else Gonzo has going on. He's a sneaky dude. We saw the return of Rosie. We hadn't seen her since episode 3. So she's back, and you got to meet the man with the eye patch. Turns out it was General Nails. He's the commander of the King's Regiment and master of the guard. I mean, seems like a pretty important dude there in the kingdom. Kind of a young guy to have that important position. I wonder how that happened. We'll probably find out at some point. Now, General Nails had a pretty intense conversation with Agent Clayton. It was friendly, but, they seemed to have a little back and forth going on. It's almost like they knew each other, huh? Speaking of Agent Clayton, it seems that he and Ram have a history as well, huh? Question is Ram and the other men of the tribe going to heed Agent Clayton's suggestion and challenge Chief Isaacs? Well, we'll have to see. So, still to come in the remaining 2 episodes of Chapter 2, young Joe is going to seek the advice of one of my favorite citizens of the lands. You haven't met her yet, but you're going to. In fact, there's still a number of citizens you've yet to meet that you're going to meet in the next couple of episodes, so stay tuned for that. And young Joe, his journey, it's about to begin. The old dead tree made an appearance in this episode. And you might just want to know, why is that so important to everyone? Why did Agent Clayton have to go look at it? Why did General Nails feel the need to go look at the old dead tree? If you've been paying attention, you may already know, but you're going to find out by the time we get to the end of Chapter 2. And still to come in Chapter 2, and in either episode 11 or 12, we have the return of an old friend of mine. You haven't seen him since episode 1. Who is that, and what has he been up to? I don't know. What I do know is that I have a message here from a citizen of the lands. No need for me to tell you who this is. Just going to introduce yourself. Hello, everyone. I am Queen Kwon, and I want to thank you for visiting our cute little lands. I hope you will let everybody know that you like it by pressing like. And if you want to know the next time there's a new adventure here in the lands, be sure to subscribe. And make sure you allow for notifications. You know what I mean? I would not want for you to miss another opportunity to visit our cute little lands. Now, leave comments if you have something to say, you know what I mean? And visit Murph's Storytime on Facebook to keep in touch. Now, keep the spirit alive and enjoy your time in the lands. Thank you, Queen Kwon. I do hope you are enjoying your time in the lands and that you will come back and visit us again soon. In the meantime, You know what you need to do? You need to keep the spirit alive.